Hello, everybody, and welcome to an episode 103 of the Best Games Period, the show where we talk about video games that we think are pretty great and might even be considered one of the best games of all time. I'm your host, Jack Gardner, and with me this week is Naomi Lugo.
I'm back.
Back with tales of glory and conquest from Iceland.
That's right. I mean, you can definitely see some RPG elements out there. That's for sure. Like there was a part where I went behind a waterfall, and I'm pretty sure I heard like the Final Fantasy, what's the word I'm looking for? The champion theme? Music. You know what I mean? Yeah, the battle theme.
You found a save crystal at one point.
Yeah. It was obscenely gorgeous. It was.
I'm glad you finished out that statement and didn't just say that the country of Iceland is just obscene.
It's obscene with its RPG-ness.
Starting a feud between this podcast and Iceland.
Oh gosh, no, let's not do that. Lovely country Iceland with an emerging gaming scene, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, you said you found like a arcade over there and were able to spend some time there?
Yeah, so in Reykjavik, which is the main city and kind of more of the touristy area, there were a couple museums that were across the street from each other, kind of underground in like almost like a subway area. One side was the bathrooms. They might have been both the bathrooms, so who knows. On the bathroom side, there was like a Icelandic punk museum, which was pretty rad. They like put history notes from Iceland's punk past in the actual bathroom stalls, and then like in the urinals they like shoved like cassette tapes and stuff, so it was very awesome. Very punk. Yeah, it was cool. And then on the other side, which I'm assuming was a woman's bathroom at one point, there was an arcade, old school arcade with a bunch of cabinets from Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, Galaga. There was, I think, something like Streets of Rage and a Donkey Kong Junior cabinet. Yeah, just a lot of oldies in there.
We need to do Galaga at some point on this show. I love Galaga. Yeah.
It's my jam. Yeah, it was fun playing free play because I could pretend I was really good at it by just like pressing the continue button whenever I failed. It was rad. But yeah, and Iceland also has a nice crew of developers out there. I actually reached out to them for hopefully a written story coming up. There's one, I think the biggest developer, something like CCP, they develop MMO EVE Online.
Yeah, EVE Online.
So I'm hopefully going to be talking to them soon, and then a couple of other indie developers, so that's awesome.
Yeah, and CCP, all the interactions I've ever had with them have been wonderful, and they're very nice, so...
Yeah, super responsive, so that's awesome.
Yeah. And this week we're actually going to be doing a game that you nominated called State of Decay.
Yes.
And I'm excited to get into that with you. But before that, were you playing anything on your trip?
Oh man, so I brought my 3DS, and on the plane I had lots of fun playing Pokemon Sun. But then with European outlets, there was something wrong with my charger or something.
Oh no.
And it just wasn't charging. Like, I got the adapters and everything, but it just would not do anything. And me being amazing, because I was traveling with my family, I let my little bros play some Smash, and they killed the battery, and bum. No more Pokemon for me. And then, of course,
sad day,
I accidentally left my 3DS with my brother. So hopefully I'll see that again one day with my save file and my Pokemon fix.
It's gone forever. It's gone forever.
No. But I mean, I was playing Pokemon Quest on my cellular, which has been absolutely adorable and fun. I love the cube style art on that game. Have you played it yet?
I haven't played it yet, but everything I've seen of it reminds me of Cubivore, which I don't it's like the super obscure GameCube game that involves like eating things that are cubes and becoming like a bigger type of cube creature.
Which sounds adorable. I will look it up right now.
It is adorable and also like kind of disturbing because
that's the best combo ever. I mean, what more could you?
It's kind of gruesome. But yeah, I have been taking advantage of the Steam sale, the summer sale that's been going on, and I got a bunch of neat things that I've been playing. I played a game called Dandera, which if you haven't checked that out, you really should, because it's this interesting Metroidvania-like game, except the unique hook is that you can't actually like move to the left or right. Instead, your character teleports and can stick to surfaces that are, completely vertical or upside down or anything really. And kind of has a little bit of a Mega Man vibe where you need to charge your shots and take down enemies that way, and you pick up power-ups and all kinds of stuff. But when you get the hang of the movement system, you're just bouncing around all over the place, and it feels really, really cool. Like nothing I've ever played before. So that was neat. Except I ran into a glitch relatively early on where I went through like an entire dungeon and puzzle level, and I encountered a character who was supposed to raise a door for me, and the door raised, except that the game didn't register that the door had raised, and I was just facing an invisible wall and could not make any progress, and so I turned it off and was angry.
Well, that was a very calm way to explain it. You could have been a lot more biased about that, so kudos.
I also played a little bit of Wizard of Legend, which I guess is the thing all the cool kids are playing these days. It's an early access roguelike that you can only play local co-op in, which is kind of a bummer because I know a bunch of friends of mine who would like to play that game with me, but we can't because we live at different ends of the United States. And the premise is that there's like a bunch of trials that wizards need to go through, and that's kind of about it. You're just kind of left with an interesting premise and some interestingly designed characters, but there's not too much of a story there, which shouldn't be a problem for most people because the gameplay is really good and flashy, but I also wish there was more to dig into there, and maybe there will be eventually. Who knows? And I bought a few other things too, but I haven't had a ton of time to dig into all of that. Because I'm also playing Vampire for review because I finally got back from E3 and have time to actually revisit where I left off in that game, and that's been...
What is this free time to do work? What is that?
Right.
Man.
And just the other day, you might have listened to the episode we did last week, which was about the awesome adventures of Captain Spirit. And that was a nice little prequel thing. And in case I didn't mention, I mentioned this in the episode itself. I issued a correction after the fact, but the awesome adventures of Captain Spirit is not episode 1 of Life is Strange 2. I just got confused because at the end of the Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit, it linked to the Steam page that sells episodes 2 through 5 of Life is Strange 2, and I erroneously made the leap to it being the first episode. That's not the case. Just making that clear. I'm a dummy. Sorry.
All is forgiven.
And that's kind of what I've been playing.
Okay. Yeah. That's a lot more than I was. Me, Pokemon. And you just got like a nice range there.
You were traveling Iceland. You have an excuse.
I was playing Pokemon Go, too, in Iceland. At least trying.
Did you catch Icelandic Pokemon?
Yeah, so I caught or at least 2 of the European exclusives. I don't know if Gen 3 has one. Mr. Mime, the most beautiful and elegant Pokemon of them all. And then Illumise, I think, which is like a partner to Volbeat or whatever. Both not very exciting Pokemon, but hey, you can't find them in the US, so that's pretty rad. But yeah, I didn't have data the whole time. So I was pretty much just hopping Wi-Fi spots, hoping to catch stuff, which worked out okay. So I caught some cool Pokemon at the Blue Lagoon, parked my Gyarados there for like a day until someone else moved him. That's fine. And oddly enough, the place that I had the most luck actually catching Pokemon was the most rural place we stayed at. Like, seriously, this place was like 2 hours away from anything and on like a mountaintop. It was called the Highlands. But yeah, I caught the most Pokemon there as opposed to Reykjavik, which is the main city. So interesting to know.
All right. The more you know. And now I think is probably a good time to mention that we did do a poll for Life is Strange. And the results came in, and they're very disappointing because we are both very much in the minority here.
What?
It was something like 70% of the respondents did not think that Life is Strange is one of the best games, period. Which I vehemently disagree with, and I think it was interesting because I think that a lot of what makes or breaks that game, I guess, is how much people can identify with it. And
yeah, I think so.
And so people who have like a very disparate experience from growing up find it very difficult to get into that kind of a game. And I guess I grew up in a place where seeing teenagers latch onto something weird like hella and like say it all. Okay, out of all of you listening, when you were a teenager, did you or did you not know some people within your friend group who latched onto stupid words and phrases and ran them into the ground?
But that didn't make it okay. But yeah, it totally happens. Yeah. Absolutely.
It was true to life for me.
Yeah.
So I get it. But it's also something that turned a lot of people off. I get that too. Anyway, I'm sad now.
It's okay. It can be the best in our eyes. I want to do like a poll with the ending to see how many people chose the ending we did without spoilers. So that's going to be kind of tough. Because apparently we are psychopaths, or sociopaths, excuse me, for choosing the ending that we did. So
and just to defend us both for a minute. Look, I think that the nature of her power is basically letting her choose the reality she wants to live in, and it almost destroys like the consequences of her actions having any kind of substantial meaning, because she can always just go backward in time and like relive her life again with all those people. But she can't necessarily do that with the girl that she's ostensibly given up everything for, because there was that one decision point and she can't go back and undo it now.
Chloe.
Yeah.
That one girl.
I didn't want to spoil it, okay? I was trying to do without spoilers. I've remembered her name, Naomi.
Okay, good. I was gonna say, like, you
Naomi.
made the decision you did, but you can't remember her name. That would have been pretty great. Anyway, shall we get into talking about zombies now?
Yeah, go for it. You're the one who nominated this game, and I want to hear you lay out your case for it.
All right. So, State of Decay. Obviously, State of Decay 2 just came out, so that kind of sparked my interest in actually talking about the first one. I suppose we'll be able to talk about the second one as well, but this episode is going to be mainly focusing on State of Decay. So first off the bat, I kind of want to clarify. I think that this game, from people who haven't played it, kind of gets a rap as more of a zombie shooter, but I think it's definitely more of a survival sim than anything else. That is totally my jam. I love, for some reason, sorting things into these little boxes and making everything established. Which is kind of opposite of how I like live in real life for some reason. But yeah, so a little background on what State of Decay actually is it's from what used to be an indie studio called Undead Labs. They put out this game in 2013, 2014, something like that.
2013.
2013. And so this is a survival sim where you control multiple characters, and it does have a storyline, a rather cheesy one and predictable one, but we'll get into that later. So you start out as a couple of survivors, Marcus, and I can't remember his friend's name.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, he's not a very useful character. He gets bitten and starts the whole thing. So you start off as this character and learn the ropes and kind of wander around, run into some tragic situation, and then you pretty much get the reins after that, and you try to build up a camp of survivors to basically survive out this apocalypse that has kind of spontaneously erupted around you. So the actual gameplay is you can switch between all of your survivors and you can gain survivors, and of course you can lose them because there is permadeath in this game. And permadeath does matter because it'll affect your remaining survivors' moods, the stability of your camp, and you lose valuable people when that happens. And we'll, again, get into that some more. But the main idea is to survive and then keep on moving around because you have to gather resources, which is another huge component. I've seen this game pretty much called resource simulator as well, which is, again, very, very fair. You are basically gathering, I think it's medical supplies, food, fuel, and construction. I think those are the main categories. You're gathering those from various places around town that are abandoned, and you're moving around the world and kind of trying to figure out what's happening and why the apocalypse is happening, but you don't really get that until the second game. But yeah, so that's pretty much the gist of it. So you played this game for the first time recently.
I did.
What did you think? Not a loaded question at all. Not a huge question at all.
I did not like State of Decay.
I could kind of get that vibe.
I would give this game a solid, depending on the day and depending on my mood, it would be anywhere from like a 5 out of 10 to a 7 out of 10.
Oh, damn. Okay.
So narrative for me is like the thing that gets me excited about games.
And it definitely does not have a strong one at all.
Yes.
Oh, man.
One of the interesting things that State of Decay does is having like a protagonist that, it's essentially protagonist-less. Your main character at any given time is dependent on like the status of the other characters that you can play as, and they all can die. So it's both one of the most interesting features, and it also kind of hamstrings any real like character building for a lot of these characters, because obviously the developer doesn't want to put in too much time really fleshing out all of these characters if there's the possibility that they're gonna die and then players will never see kind of those outcomes. And
they have they have really, really generic backgrounds too, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, and this game when it came out was made by an indie studio. Like it didn't have like major AAA funding behind it, which is fine. It's just that very clearly they had to allocate their resources to different things, and narrative was not one of those things.
Did you beat the game?
I hit a point where I was just like, realistically, if I was playing this for fun, I would just stop playing this and not play it anymore.
Uh-huh.
And so that's what I did.
Okay. Well,
and then I looked up how it ends and was just kind of like, okay.
It's so fantastically bad. When I first played through the ending, I'm like, are you serious? That's it? It pretty much just has like a really abrupt ending, and then it's done. Okay, cool. I was getting all pumped up, like, when I was playing through it the first time to, like, I got my bases ready, got my cars loaded up. I was like, yeah, let's do this. And then it just kind of ends, and I was like, oh, great, now I can't go back to all of that gameplay. Sweet. Cool. Yeah, it's definitely kind of got a D-movie vibe to it, like
yeah,
it's cheesy.
Yeah.
And the character, I think the voice acting, I can't really remember it too well. It's not fantastic, but there's some that are just decent.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like a lot of the voice acting is definitely people showing up and collecting a paycheck and doing very decent work. They knew what they were working on, and they weren't given that much to work with. So with what they had, they did a fine job with it.
Yeah.
No complaints with me on the voice acting department. I think a lot of where my biggest gripes come up, though, are in terms of how the world spawns in zombies. Because it's really, really frustrating to know that you cleared out a building and then all of a sudden some zombies spawn in the building.
Totally makes sense. That's how the population works. When one person dies, that just bloop, another one pops up.
Or
Obviously.
I would be running into like side quests where it's like defend the house, and I would just be like, all right, I go out and murder like all the zombies around the house, and then the mission would still be going on, and so I would just have to. At one point I literally stood at a location for 15 minutes and nothing was showing up, and then some zombies like appeared on the horizon and ran over. I killed them and thought the mission was going to be over, and it did the same thing 2 more times, and I was just getting so frustrated.
Yeah, this game has its fair share of bugs, that's for sure. It definitely does.
It's mind-blowing to me because they actually don't sell the original version of State of Decay anymore. They sell State of Decay Year 1 Survival Edition, which is kind of like a combination of like all the fixes and DLC that they've put out for the game so far, and that released in 2015, and I think that's the version that got ported to like modern consoles, Xbox One and stuff, and it's still like there are still some huge rough patches.
Yep.
And I also didn't. So I guess here's kind of where I'm at. The State of Decay, I can see where they were trying to go in that it is going out and collecting resources and then bringing those resources back and building up your base and making sure all of the interpersonal stuff with your members is all right. But the actual base management isn't good either. Like, I never felt like it was super... I never felt like I was building up a base that was mine. I felt like I was filling in slots. And the upgrades weren't necessarily that impactful when I made them. I would have liked that better if building up the base had much more of a hands-on, maybe like a Fallout 4 type situation where you're building up a base that way. Because to me, either you make a zombie game and you have a big picture look, which I like that's what this game was going for, and kind of taking the big picture look at this zombie apocalypse, or you tell kind of a more personalized story, and this game is kind of trying to do both, and it's not really working for me.
Got it. See, I am agreeing with like every point that you have, but I still love this game.
Yeah. So what overcomes those issues for you?
So really, it's the actual gameplay and without the technical part of that, and I'll explain what that means because I know it pretty much doesn't make sense. So what that means is how I felt when I was actually playing the game. So I played this game pretty addictively. I didn't play it right when it came out. I played it a couple years later, but I did play both the first version and then Year 1. But it's it's a different kind of addictive gaming. It's kind of separate from any other addictive gaming experiences I've had, and I'm still kind of trying to figure out how that is. But I've felt a lot of accomplishment playing this game, and I totally get what you mean with the base building. And I think because this was a first game and it was an indie studio, a lot of the fans give it a lot of slack. The second one, we'll try not to go off too much on a tangent there, but that's where I think we were all hoping for those kind of features to come in. So we gave State of Decay 1, kind of a pass for that. But State of Decay 2 didn't really deliver on all that. But I think a big part of it was there was just so much charm in this world that they made. It felt like a real town without being super hyper realistic, and the people felt, I guess, not real, but real enough where I actually cared about them while I was playing as them, and I didn't want them to die, because I think the high stakes were a real big part of that. Like I would be building up Marcus, or I forget, there is like a veteran sharpshooter that you get shortly after you get those two. I built her up a lot too, and you develop these skills, and I really loved that part of it. I loved maxing out everyone and making everything super what is that word? Anyway, maximize, we'll go with. But I've never felt safe playing the game. Like, I never got to the point where I could be totally complacent and be reminded by the game, you know what I mean? Like, I was always on my toes, and I loved that. Like,
and that makes sense to me, because when the game was firing on all cylinders and working properly, that's kind of the same sense that I got from it too. But then I would get frustrated with certain enemies not responding to attacks, or my attacks going through enemies, and that to me, when you introduce something like permadeath into the situation, you want to make the deaths feel fair. And I had a few of mine die, and I was just like, I don't even know. I could have done stuff to prevent that, but the game was not letting me do those things. Like, I was attacking, but I couldn't hit the things I was attacking, and it was a source of frustration for me. Mm-hmm. Not that the game was entirely at fault for me putting my characters in situations where they died, but about half the time that was the case for me. And
I've definitely had a couple of those deaths, for sure. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And so, and as for like building up characters, I get what you're saying there too, and I love a lot of the core ideas that were in this game, but I would have liked to see them all fleshed out more. Fleshed out, not flushed out. And I think maybe a good comparison for this would actually be the reboot of XCOM.
Okay.
Because that game also has permadeath, and also has a lot of characters that aren't necessarily given really in-depth stories. They don't even have like voice acting, really.
No, you pretty much just customize their like name and then their armor color, right?
Yeah, but their stories form for the player as they go through missions, and like that one character makes that one amazing shot, and that's what you remember them for. And you make very impactful decisions about how they level up and how they progress. And each of those decisions makes them a better and better soldier. And then if they happen to die, that becomes a huge problem. You feel that gap in your team. And State of Decay, I think, struggles with that. I don't think that the character like progression is well enough defined that I ever felt like one character wasn't replaceable by the next one. Like I don't know. It always felt like a survivor that was just starting out had about as much of a chance of surviving as someone that was super experienced. I don't know. I don't know if that's a sense that you got.
It isn't, but I'm trying to get that perspective too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because anyone I ever had die, they were pretty much the B list, right? And I think I did rage quit one game where I lost one of my big characters because of a glitch. I think. So.
Good golly.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, like, base building is a really interesting idea.
Oh, it could be a ton better.
Yeah. Or
it was pretty. This game is pretty much a glimpse at what zombie survival, or well, let's throw out the zombies. Even just survival sims could be.
Yeah.
You're in an open world. You're in relatively, updated graphics compared to a lot of other survival games, which seem to be on a very different graphical scale. And I think that's what really hooked a lot of people. They wanted this kind of game, and they wanted to be able to navigate a world and feel it as viscerally as they did in State of Decay. And I think that's probably why a lot of the fans who are pretty much in the cult status really give this game a lot of slack. Me included.
Well, and I think this game is a good example of a game that isn't... I would not consider it one of the best games, period, but if you're a game developer and you're looking for ideas to do something to do that's different with your own game that you have coming up, this is a perfect textbook example of why you maybe want to go back and play some of the games that aren't necessarily the best reviewed ever. Because even games that are kind of middling, or some games that are even outright bad, have really good ideas and just didn't execute them well. And I think that this game is full of good ideas that, to varying degrees, either delivered or weren't able to live up to their potential. At least that's kind of the point of view I have on it, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It for several hours it did scratch my collecting itch. And then I started questioning, like, why I was collecting this stuff when I already had, like, a base that was fully stocked up with stuff. And
yeah,
I think another thing to mention is that the missions are not great.
You mean you didn't like babysitting people when they were having temper tantrums?
Yeah, or
that is definitely the most annoying part of that game that I found.
Well, yeah, like the escort missions and it was just very repetitive, and it needed a lot more variety in there to make it more interesting to me. And I just think, again, like, it needed more variety. It needed more. For a zombie game, it needed more fleshing out. The combat was functional, but again, sometimes didn't work, or just didn't have some basic things that seemed like they should be in there. And like, for example, sure, there was a ton of weapon and gun variety, but they all felt very interchangeable to me, to the point where it didn't really matter what kind of gun I had equipped.
It's all about them stats, though.
Yeah, but I mean, it didn't matter. Yeah, I was just kind of... I struggled with this game, and I put like 10 hours into it. I was just... I was not feeling it.
All right, that's fair. So, I have a couple anecdotes for why this game was just fun. So one is going to be one that a lot of State of Decay players will remember, and that is riding around in cars, right? That is a huge feature that I wish they left in State of Decay 2 a little bit more, even though it's not realistic, is just being able to ram the hell out of zombies and just take out hordes with your car repeatedly.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was, I mean, that was like 90% of my gameplay was taking out zombies in cars. That was a lot of fun. And then the second is how much this game will show you if you're a bad person or not. So one time, I think I had one of my star characters, and I was doing some sort of, it was either a mission or a supply run, and I got caught in between like two hordes or something. This character was going to die, out of stamina, no pills. So I did something desperate, and I lured those hordes into another survivor house that was nearby.
Oh,
and,
no.
Basically fed those survivors to the zombies so I could sneak away. Which I did without a second thought until afterwards. I was like, oh my god, what did I just do? And this was a friendly neighboring group too, mind you. Yeah, so I mean, it was a lot of moments like that just made this game fun. Like finding like farms out in the middle of random farms. Farms in the middle of farms in the middle of fields. Wow, that might have like a dangerous horde in there, and then you just have to fight like hell or run like hell. And I just really liked the locations a lot. Like there's 2 or 3 towns. Like there's the first town that you kind of start in. It kind of, I guess, counts as a town. There's the second one, which is where a lot of the game kind of takes place, and then there's kind of a bigger city. Mm-hmm. I liked the variety there a lot, and I don't know, they felt like real towns, as real as it could be in this, style of game. And I just kind of want to compare it to State of Decay 2 now a little bit.
Can I just say one last thing before you get into State of Decay 2?
Yes.
There is a stealth mechanic in State of Decay, and it is, I did not find that helpful in the slightest. I was infuriated by it constantly to the point where I just didn't use it anymore, because why bother?
You just use the cars instead.
Right, like just drive everywhere. And they spend like a good 20 to 30 minutes cautioning you about car usage and how it's bad.
Oh, and they're abundant.
here's the moment I was just like very upset with State of Decay. And that was during an early mission where you had to go with 2 people, I think, to the veterinary clinic. It's very early on in the game. And I was driving around with the car and like getting supplies, putting it in the trunk as we were going along, as I went over to the area where you meet the other 2 characters. And they told me to get out of the car, so I'm like, all right. So I get out of the car, and we like sneak our way over to the veterinary place, and we get the supplies, and then we like sneak our way back, and then I get in the car because it's time to go back, and they both yell at me about getting in. The car is too loud; it'll draw all the zombies, and yep. I'm just like, oh, well. It's full of all these supplies, so I guess I'll just drive back to the base without the 2 of you, drop the supplies off. I drive back, and they're still waiting there in the middle of a wide open space, berating me about my car usage. I get out of the car, we sneak like maybe another block, and then we get attacked by zombies, and one of them's like, okay, let's get in a car and head back to the base. And I just about lost it at the game, because then I had to go grab the car again and drive back and have them get in the car. And then we just drove on like it was no problem. And I was just... Stuff like that was just very irritating to me.
Yeah. What was his name? He was like a old crotchety character.
The sergeant type character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was annoying.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. I think I always sent him out on like random supply runs. Just go, get out of here. Yeah, there's like tiny spoiler. I think like there's a mission where if you choose a certain thing, he will leave. And I was like, good riddance. Anyway, so yeah, State of Decay 2. I don't know, have you played any State of Decay 2?
I have not.
Okay, so it's a continuation of the story of State of Decay 1. You're not gonna see any of the characters that you saw in the first game, at least not where I got, which is about 30 to 40 hours in.
But would it matter if you did?
It'd be like a little Easter egg, you know. I'm sure they tie it in at the end.
I don't remember any of their names.
Just Marcus, pretty much.
Marcus was the first one to die.
Oh, no. But Marcus. So I am extremely disappointed with State of Decay 2. And
really?
one of the biggest reasons is because they made the world just so damn bland. Like, so the world now has 3 maps and they're the same size as the one map in State of Decay 1. And I just have really no drive to explore these worlds. They're just kind of blank. They don't have that real town feel like the first one had. There's just no charm. And there was just so much missed opportunity. Like, the base building is slightly better, but there's not a lot more to it. Like, you just get a couple more slots and a little bit more features. Like, your survivors can now learn skills from textbooks, and you can't build certain facilities without having that knowledge. Okay, cool. Why can't I you still have the pretty much like open slots and you pick what you want. That's it. So I was really disappointed in that. The characters are again pretty bland. The story, meh. It just didn't.
And did it kind of ditch the cartoony aesthetic too?
Yeah, I guess. The graphics are updated. They're not like this gen like maxed out or anything, but they're updated. And there were still some bugs. I know they put in a lot of work to fix those though. So, and when I booted up the game again a couple days ago, it was running pretty smooth. But yeah, it just lacked a lot of charm that the first one had. And so I'm just using that comparison to kind of build up the case for the first one a little bit more in a kind of disappointing way. But I don't know. You would think that they would have had a lot more resources now that they're backed by Microsoft, and Microsoft desperately needs these console exclusives. So you think they would have had a lot more pressure to do all these things that they have definitely known the fans wanted, and they're just not there. Like, sure, it's still okay. It's still fun, and it does ramp up difficulty a little bit, I think, as you go along. There's a couple more features, but it just doesn't have the spark that made the first one special for me. So, yeah.
Okay. How long ago have you did you play the first one? I'm kind of wondering if it would hold if that. Have you played it recently, I guess?
No, I was hoping to, but I did not.
Okay. Because I'm kind of wondering if, like, maybe there's an aspect of, like, rose-colored
rose-tinted glasses? Yeah. Probably. But I am basing it on how the game felt when I played it.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely rose-tinted glasses.
It is a shame because there is a lot of good foundational work done in this game that they could have used to significantly make something significantly better, I think. And part of what this game had going for it was being distinct from other zombie games, which it definitely is. In to some degree. In other respects, it is very similar to other zombie games, and that is not really something that works in its favor. But it's disappointing to hear that the follow-up hasn't really surpassed it, especially when the first one kind of set the second one up for a layup.
Yeah, it set it up for a lot of cool things that should have happened. That's why it's probably decent, but it makes me so disappointed, and that just kind of ruins it for me. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Fair. So, at the end of the day, is that kind of your last piece on State of Decay?
See, part of me wants to say that yes, this is one of the best games because State of Decay 2 is so disappointing, and then the other, like, spiteful part of me wants to say no, it's not because State of Decay is so disappointing. So I'm torn because this is a genuinely fun game that I have gotten very addicted to, and I find that a special quality. I will have to go back and play it in its state now. But
I'm upset that you made that joke because it stole the joke that I was gonna make. But
oh,
go
burn. On. So I'm torn. I don't know. You know those addictive games that you can just go back to over and over always have a special place in my heart. So oh, and yeah, to expand on its replayability, I guess. I first played it through Beat the Story, and then I played it again like another year after that, if that helps my case at all.
Okay. And I'm not going to tell you that your perception of it is wrong. It's totally fine for different people to like different things. And
what?
Yeah, I know. Crazy idea, right? But in this particular case, I think the name of the game is very apt for my feelings about it. It is in a state of decay, but
you still went for it.
I went for it anyway because I had to. It was like a Chekhov's gun type moment. I set up that there was going to be this terrible joke, and I had to pay it off. And
I'm not disappointed. It is terrible.
I think that this game, if I had played it maybe right when it came out, I would be a lot more impressed by it.
Probably.
As it is 5 years later, especially with games that have done base building in a much more interesting way, like in my head I think of Fallout 4 that had its bases, and that game really didn't need base building in it. I don't even know why it had base building in it, because ultimately at the end of the day that had nothing to do with anything in Fallout 4. But
yeah.
I still ended up building the crap out of all the bases that I had there. And I had a really good time doing that, and it's just not something I found enjoyable in this game. And a lot of the mechanics didn't fully work as intended, or I didn't really understand why they worked the way they did, and maybe that's on me. Maybe that's me as being a bad player. I'm willing to accept that possibility, because this kind of game isn't typically my thing, but
Okay, yeah, I was gonna ask you that, because I think that's a huge part of it.
Well, I also like the crafting and like scavenging stuff. Like, I really loved The Long Dark. But I wasn't... This game scratched that itch for a while until I got caught up in all of the other stuff that was in there that I didn't particularly enjoy. And so I think partially this game is a victim of time, and also just of huge ambitions that didn't necessarily have the funding necessary to back it up fully at the time. Because honestly, we didn't even touch on this, but the in-game world is huge. Like,
it is, yeah.
You can pedal to the metal a car all the way across the map, and it'd probably take you, what, like 20-30 minutes.
Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah, and that's a lot that's a lot of space to fill up with meaningful content. And I think that they tried their best, but it needed more time or a smaller space to fill up with kind of what they had. So it's a no from me.
I'm shocked.
I know. I've been really holding back on it all game. It's a real surprise all day.
Well, I suppose now is a good time for Contrarian Corner, where we read Metacritic reviews, and I have a couple here. They're pretty long, so bear with me.
Okay.
The first one is from the aptly named Disappointed 246, and they do not capitalize any words except for I. Yeah.
All right, that's a start.
So, they say, very saddened about this game, as I was excited for it, but it turned out I was wrong. Firstly, the game is too hard, and the permadeath feature and its auto-saving is obnoxious, and the overpowered Biggin zombie, killing 2 of my best characters on a Zed hunt, leaving me to use the lesser skilled, or in my opinion, useless members of the base. Wow, that was a big run-on sentence. Anyway. The had been injured and refused to heal for 4 days straight in game time, and even able-bodied team members are lazy that they can't sprint for more than 2 seconds. This game is the embodiment of cruel developers trying to snatch control and fun away from gamers and ruining any hard work of player or progress that is made, thus leaving them with the bottom-of-the-barrel team members. Also, zombies have an unfair grappling animation that is frustrating and overpowered, even when the player is a few feet away from the car. 0 out of 10, too hard. A really sad attempt by developers to torment and punish gamers with the permadeath and creating a depressing result and sucking out any fun there is to be had.
I do not think I would call this game too hard.
No.
That's just me, though. Maybe other people have a different experience. Clearly.
Alright. So, the second one is from EgoSum. Alright, so 1 is sad, 1 is angered for no reason, 1 is hurt, 1 is not interested or not want to just because, except you have to cuddle them.
What was that string of words?
So, what they're talking about is the that quest where you have to basically bring people out when they're sad and talk to them. So they're saying 1 is sad, 1 is angered. So yeah, but yeah, it's not grammatically correct at all. So except you have to cuddle them, walk them till they blow up some steam, or they are pooped and satisfied. You have to be the sexy nurse for all sorts of idiots who don't give a flying F about you. It doesn't matter if you are tired, you cannot simply sleep because there are no free beds. You cannot even sit into a goddamn chair to wait. No such rocket science commands like wait or sleep until morning. No difference between...
Actually, that was a good point. It seemed to me that night was the most dangerous time for zombies, and there was no way to just wait until daylight.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It is frustrating, and they didn't fix it in the second game, by the way.
Why? People need to sleep, game developers.
No difference between large backpacks and small ones. You cannot swap between characters in certain missions. Anger management to make them carry more than 4 stacks of MRE. Okay. Anger management. You are the only mule who can carry stuff like ibuprofen. Wow. That is a big old typo. I don't even know how to say that. And all sorts of fens. Into stacks of 3. Only for the sake of so-called survivalism. For the sake of survivalism, you cannot have stacks of bullets greater than 30. Moreover, when you pick up bullets from stash, you pick them up one by one. Items magically disappear from loot if you didn't pick them up when searched. Abysmal. Don't bother, even for free. It's just a no-name zombie game among hundreds of no-name zombie games. Boom.
All right.
All right.
Contrarian Corner.
Boop, boop.
How do we end these? I forget.
Extra life.
Extra life. All right.
Twitter.
Now you know what we think of State of Decay. If you want to let us know what you think, we're always happy to hear about it on twitter.com @bestgamesperiod. We always look forward to feedback. If you want to get real serious, you can leave us a review on iTunes, which is always helpful to us. And you can also decide to back us on Patreon, patreon.com/bestgamesperiod, where if you donate $1 per month to help us keep the show running and the lights on, we occasionally post up unique and special episodes just for you, our backers. We love you, and you're probably very handsome and or beautiful. With that being said, you can find our podcast on iTunes, Libsyn, SoundCloud, and most places that, podcasts can be found, including community.extra-life.org. And if you're wondering, what is that? Well, Extra Life is this wonderful charity that helps sick and injured kids in hospitals all across the United States and Canada. It is fantastic. It's part of Children's Miracle Network Hospitals. And basically, when you sign up, you can choose which Children's Miracle Network hospital you want to donate to, and 100% of all the money you raise goes directly to that hospital to help sick and injured kids. It's really fantastic. Highly recommend you check it out at extra-life.org. And if you want to get more involved in the community side of things and find this podcast and maybe read some other stuff about cool video games like Fear the Wolves, which is an upcoming battle royale game that also has a lot of survival elements like we've been talking about today in this zombie game that I keep wanting to call Dead by Daylight, but I know that that's not the zombie game we were talking about today. Then head over to community.extra-life.org. And listen to our podcast. And also, relatedly, I will be having another podcast coming out soon that I can cross-promote from. What? Whoa. It's gonna be
shameless plug.
It's going to be about Dungeons and Dragons.
Nerd.
Yep. And friend of the show, Marcus Stewart, is going to be on that as well. So look forward to that. Anything you want to add?
We will be getting a new logo soon.
That's right.
So we'll be unveiling that eventually. We're not sure when.
Yes, we need to give it proper deference.
Yeah, it needs a yes, exactly.
Yeah. With that being said, we'll see you next week on the Flippity Dippity.